Yes, last night was a close game loss for the Orlando Magic, but I'm here to tell you the numbers say it. Paolo Banchero is clutch. He was clutch last night too. Let's talk about what the numbers say about the Magic in clutch time, plus 3-point shooting, and some trade deadline talk on today's Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is January 18th. It will be January 19th, 2024. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the site expert and editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can find me, of course, on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's homecoming edition of Locked On Magic, we're going to talk about Paolo Banchero's numbers in the clutch because he is one of the most clutch players in the NBA. This season, I'm not going to say today, this season, we'll talk about where Paolo has found success and why he's a big reason why the Magic are where they are at. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. I'm back here in Orlando, back home, getting ready for tomorrow's game against the Philadelphia 76ers. And I've got something positive to say. I got something really, really exciting to share with you. I wrote a post about it a few days ago. I wanted to save it till I got home so we could really dive in and really feel something positive. And guess what? Even though the Magic lost last night, I can still say what I'm about to say. Paolo Banchero is really freaking clutch. He is a clutch player. And frankly, the Magic have not had a guy who can take over games late the way that Paolo Banchero can and has, even at this young age, even in his rookie season. On my road trip, I was down in Miami and saw one of Paolo's few clutch failures. He walked off the court Friday night in Miami, last Friday in Miami, extremely frustrated. You could see it. Honestly, you could, we all saw the clip from Sacramento. We could tell that he was using maybe some salty language, and it wasn't directed at anybody. Look, Miami won the game. Adebayo hit that big shot. Banchero hit two humongous shots to set all that up. But on the final possession, of course, or last meaningful final possession, he had a runner that he missed. He got the rebound. Ball slipped out of his hands. You could tell that it ate him up. To have that kind of a high-profile failure, to be frank, in a game that the Magic really needed to have. And again, we'll get to schedule stuff later on. We're going to talk mid-season review stuff next week during the Magic's little break. But you could tell that moment ate him up. He was not happy. And even post-game, he was, I wouldn't say despondent, but he was frustrated. Frustrated mostly with himself. Obviously, we get to New York on Monday, and Paolo hits two critically huge jumpers to keep the Magic in front. It's not just about your game-winning shots. It's about your just ability to make critical shots. And Banchero, after an offensive rebound, Markelle Fultz finds Banchero for a step-in elbow jumper, which that shot is just money for him if you're not up in his grill. Easy basket. And then again in transition, Markelle gets downhill, finds Banchero. He's able to get a runner to go, and that maintained a 4-point lead for the Magic. Big shot. And of course, there was Wednesday night in Atlanta. Magic down by 3. They left that door wide open. Atlanta couldn't quite pull away from them, couldn't get the stop that they needed down the stretch. I mean, yes, Orlando missed opportunities. Talked about that yesterday. But Banchero stepped up. His only made 3 of the game was the one that tied it. that should have sent it to overtime. But of course, DeJounte Murray did what DeJounte Murray does. As I always say with clutch stats, usually they're smaller sample sizes. Usually you do have to take them with some grain of salt. And as always, good teams don't win clutch games. They avoid them. But obviously we're dealing with a team that's going to be playing a very, very tight schedule and very, very tight around the margins. Every single one of these clutch games is going to matter. So the fact that the Magic are 13-9 in clutch games, it's a positive thing. I mean, really, we could say the only games that maybe they really, the two games they should have had, they probably should be 15-7. Or no, is that right? Yeah, 15-7. I can't math. They should be 15-7 because Atlanta and Miami were two golden opportunities they let slip away. But look, at the end of the day, when you're in a clutch situation, it's usually a 50-50 proposition. And so to be above 500 is to gain ground in these situations. And yes, some of these clutch situations are the Magic had a big lead, teams came back on them. Some of it is the Magic snuck it under 5 for a little bit. There are those, but we can also count the number of times the Magic have successfully won clutch games. The 2 games in Chicago, the Paolo shot in Utah. There are a lot of really impressive, the game against the Knicks in Orlando. There are a lot of really impressive close game moments that this team has had. And for the most part, they've all involved Paolo Banchero. If you are looking for another reason why Paolo Banchero should be an all-star, here is another one. The thing that all-stars do a lot in 78.9 minutes of clutch action this season. He's played in every single clutch game the Magic have played so far. In 78.9 clutch minutes, Paolo Banchero has scored 75 clutch points. He has scored the 5th most clutch points. That's when the game is within 5 points in the final 5 minutes in the entire league. The players ahead of him. Steph Curry leads the league at 113. Damian Lillard is second at 92. Mikal Bridges at 90. Trae Young at 85. Paolo Banchero at 75. Obviously, he is just a hair ahead of DeMar DeRozan of Chicago, who's got 71. The Bulls are playing the Raptors as I speak, and what at least the last time I checked, the score was a relatively close game. Nikola Jokic also has 71. Giannis Antetokounmpo has 65. Essentially what I'm saying is, when it comes to late game situations right now, Paolo is scoring with the best of them. He is scoring really, really well, and frankly, doing a lot of it at the free throw line. He's 21 for 28 from the foul line. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that everything's hunky-dory. He's shooting 43.6% on these clutch field goals. He's 24 for 55. So he still has his share of misses. He's got 9 turnovers in those 78.9 minutes across 22 games. He will still make a lot of mistakes. He's 6 for 17 from 3, which is 35.3%, for where he was last year, getting to where he is now, is certainly a positive thing and certainly a positive sign. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Paolo should win the Clutch Player of the Year award. I don't think he's quite there yet. But what we do know and what we have seen, take the numbers, take the stories, take them both together. What we have seen is a player who is unafraid of the moment, who is unafraid of the big shot, whom his team trusts to take those big shots. Now, obviously, Franz Wagner has been out for a while, but there are no other players close on the Orlando Magic. As far as where the Magic go in the clutch, it's Paolo. Paolo is the decision maker. Paolo is the scorer. Paolo is the shooter. In all their clutch minutes, Franz Wagner has 22 clutch points. He's shooting just 7 for 18, by the way. Jalen Suggs has 21. He's 6 for 19, 5 for 14 from 3 in clutch situations with 14 rebounds, 4 assists, not too bad, and as well as 3 steals. So clutch defense from Jalen. But after that, no one scored more than 10 points in clutch situations. When you get to the end of a game, and yeah, I'm talking about total numbers, so how much you play does matter. Franz has obviously missed a lot of time. Wendell's missed a lot of time. He had a big shot on Monday's game. Jalen missed a lot of time. Markel's missed a lot of time. Markel was very clutch last year as far as just clutch field goal percentage, but there was a lot more balance last year. This year, Paolo is this team's everything. And frankly, make or miss at this point, I want Paolo taking those shots. It is another situation where you live with the mistakes, you live with the faults, because This is what Paolo's going to be doing for the rest of his career. In fact, he mentioned that when talking about some of the double teams. He said, I understand I'm going to be seeing these double teams for the rest of my career. I need to learn how to handle them. He's done a pretty good job handling them and learning how to handle them. Obviously, he still makes some mistakes here and there, but this is all part of that learning process. And Paolo Banchero is a clutch player. Plain and simple. Paolo Banchero is a clutch player. And frankly, the Magic probably haven't had a player with these kind of clutch bona fides since Rashard Lewis, since Jameer Nelson, maybe Tobias Harris. He had that little run. Probably not since Tracy McGrady, a player who really strikes fear into defenders' hearts, knowing he's going to get the ball and he's going to do something with it. Frankly, it just feels like Paolo comes alive in these clutch moments. And before you get to anything else, having a player like that, that's the foundation of everything. So Paolo's climbed to 8th in the Eastern Conference front court. He's within striking range of passing Bam Adebayo for 7th before we get to the end of voting at the end of the day on Friday. 3-for-1 voting day on Friday. We're expecting Paolo Banchero to be an NBA All-Star, and this is yet another reason why. Okay. As I do after every game where the Magic don't shoot the ball particularly well, I know I mentioned it yesterday, let's dive into some of the three-point shooting numbers and why three-point shooting is the problem the team is going to define the team's second half of the season. We're going to get to that and the trade market coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at PrizePicks. Look, daily fantasy games can be really, really, really tough. You got those strange salary caps. You got those strange scoring rules. It doesn't make sense. When you play a daily fantasy game, you want simple. And there's nothing more simple than saying whether you think a player is going to score more or less than a projected amount. And that's what PrizePicks is. All you have to do is put together a group of 2 to 6 players and predict whether they will score more or less than the projected amount. If you think Joel Embiid is going to score more than 30 points in Friday's game, you just say more. I wouldn't bet on that if Wendell Carter's starting. I don't know if he is, because Wendell Carter's a Joel stopper. Yeah, I said it, Locked On Sixers. If you think Paolo Banchero is going to score more than 23.5 points, you just say he's going to score more. It's that simple. And with the NFL playoffs going on, you can actually do special custom leagues as well that combine basketball and football stats, like receptions and three-pointers made. It's that easy. It's that much fun. And you can integrate all your sports into one pick. Go to prizepicks.com, where daily fantasy is easy. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match of up to $100. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at LinkedIn. At the start of the new year, every small business owner is asking themselves the same question. What's the one move I can make that'll take my business to the next level in 2024? LinkedIn Jobs knows that your success all depends on the team you surround yourself with. That's why LinkedIn Jobs has created the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And I know as someone who's looked for jobs on LinkedIn, it is also great for the job seeker as well. LinkedIn also knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. Thankfully, with LinkedIn, the process is intuitive, quick, and easy. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember to check out the Locked On Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel today. Okay, I remember last night when I was in the mental health room at the State Farm Arena. That is the name of the room I was in. That was not the state of my mental health at the time, despite doing the ad read that I did for that game. And I remember just kind of throwing a throwaway line in that, saying like, the Magic didn't shoot the ball well. Like sometimes it's just about making some shots. And again, Jamal Mosley kind of repeated, we're getting good looks. They're just not going down. And so I got, I was sitting in the airport in Atlanta and I got back into the habit that I get into when there are these kinds of games. Because look, the Magic are playing really well right now. Like, I want to repeat this. Like, yes, they went 1-3 on this road trip, but all 4 of these games, the Magic brought it defensively. They were great defensively in Miami. They were holding Oklahoma City to 112, was a heck of an effort. They held the Knicks under 100 points. Holding that Hawks team to 106 points, I think it was a 110 defensive rating for the Magic. That is some excellent defense. And look, the Magic have made it very, very clear that their goal this year is to play really good defense. And I know the Hawks made some plays down the stretch. They got to the foul line, whether you want to believe those were fouls or not. I mean, I just got fouled, so I threw my head back. It happened. But the Magic are playing really, really well right now. And I think coming home, getting a couple practices, getting some healthy bodies back, I am not concerned about the Magic. We know how the schedule sets up. We know getting some home games right now is going to be big. It's a big weekend. I think you got to go 2-1 this weekend if you can manage it. And the 2 games on Sunday and Monday are especially huge. But look, at the end of the day, they got to find a way to scratch out wins. And frankly, this is kind of the thing. Your defense is only good if you can outscore it. And that's the problem right now. And honestly, this is the problem that will define the rest of the season. So I did what I always do after these bad 3-point shooting games. And Orlando ended up shooting, I believe, 8 for 35 in this game against the Atlanta Hawks, or 10 for 35, 10 for 30. I made them worse than they were. They shot 10 for 35 from 3. Caleb Houston went 1 for 7. Cole Anthony went 1 for 6. Paolo Banchero went 1 for 5. Jalen Suggs was a perfect 3 for 3. Wendell Carter, I believe, was 3 for 4. They did get some looks to go down, but 3 of their best 3-point shooters, or 3 of their most reliable 3-point shooters, did not hit shots. And so sometimes there's nothing you can do. These guys got to keep taking shots. And, I think, I made the joke during the game, Caleb Houston, whatever green light Caleb Houston has probably needs to go to yellow. Jet Howard is going to get called up for Friday's game, so shooting reinforcements are maybe coming. Being back in the Kia Center is going to help as well. But the bottom line is this. I did what I always do after these kinds of games. I went to the NBA.com stat page and tried to figure out, okay, were these actually good shots? And as has seemingly always been the case, yes, these were good shots. The Magic went 5 for 18 when the closest defender was 6 or more feet away. The Magic were 5 for 14 when the closest defender was 4 to 6 feet away. That means the Magic made all 10 of their 3-pointers when they were quote unquote open or wide open. And 32 of the team's 35 attempts came when they were open or wide open. 35 to me is the right number for the Magic. I've said all year I want the Magic to get to around 35 attempts per game. They're at about 30, a little bit more than 30 now after the last couple of weeks, but I think 35 is probably the right number for them to just be taking enough threes to keep defenses honest, but they're not making threes. They're getting good shots and they're not making them. And honestly, after everything else, that's why the Magic are losing. You look at, say, the starting lineup with Chuma Okeke and Caleb Houston. And I think most Magic fans are ready for the team to move on from that. Maybe put Anthony Black in there. I'll advocate and say, I think the Magic just need to put Markelle Fultz and Wendell Carter back in. Whatever minute restriction they're on, they're pretty much off it. Carter played 24 minutes. Fultz hit 30 on Wednesday. It's time to just get back, figure out if our preseason assumptions were correct. And those two guys are playing really well. And I know there's some frustration with Markelle and some of it's warranted. But I'm not impressed with the Caleb Houston, Chuma Okeke lineup. Magic kept it for continuity's sake, better for worse. That's what they did. That lineup is slightly positive. They had a really good game on Wednesday, but I think we all sense that, okay, that lineup's not doing it. And a lot of it is because the shooting is so inconsistent. And when you look at the numbers, they defend really, really well. They don't score points typically. They scored points on Wednesday. They won their minutes 36-31, but they don't typically score a lot of points. And every issue the Magic have, if you look at the best lineups the Magic have, almost all of them, almost every good lineup the Magic has includes Joe Ingles. It includes Gary Harris for as poorly as he shot this year. Shooting is the thing that defines the problems with this team. Bottom line, this team is the worst three-point shooting team in the league right now. They're shooting 34% from three, which is the lowest in the league. They are not making enough shots to, they're not making, let me say that. Let me rephrase that. They are still competitive. It's not that they're not competitive. Their defense is making them competitive. But their lack of shooting is holding them back. Why have they fallen to 8th in the Eastern Conference playoff standings? Why are they looking at a road game in that 7-8 matchup? It's because they're not shooting the ball well enough. And look, honestly, that Atlanta game, it was played at Orlando's pace. Holding that Atlanta team to 106 points is a heck of an effort. It was played at a pace that Orlando could control. They were leading most of the game. There's some seesawing, but they were leading most of that game. They looked like they were ready to take over, and they couldn't hit a shot. And it opened them up to a situation where Atlanta could hit some tough shots. Where Atlanta, I hate saying this about Atlanta because I think they are still very dangerous. I don't want to see them in a do or die situation in the play-in tournament. But it put them in a situation where they believe they could win the game, and they outworked Orlando in those final 3 minutes to win it. Everything springs from these three-point shooting problems. And it's the definitive question for the Magic as we get closer to the trade deadline, as we see how this team develops over the course of the rest of the season. It's going to determine where they end up seating-wise, and it's going to be part of every single transaction discussion that we're going to have the rest of the year until, in the summer at the deadline. It's the definitive thing. The Magic need shooters. It's not just that they need shooters because they got some decent shooters. Like Paolo's gone cold a little bit. Jalen Suggs redefined himself as a great shooter. Franz is obviously having a down shooting year. Gary's having a down shooting year. Wendell's an excellent shooter. They have some shooters. It's just about getting them to make shots every single night. With that being said, it's time to get a little bit more serious about the trade deadline. We're, 2 weeks away? 3 weeks away? Let me get my calendar out. We are 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. So let's talk a little bit about what the Magic are thinking, offering, considering. We'll get to that coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at Gametime. I was out on the road, and I got this handy notification on my phone here. And yes, that is a Larry O'Brien trophy on my phone. Got a handy notification on my phone telling me that prices for tonight's game against the Philadelphia 76ers were dropping. Now, why would they be dropping? This is our last chance to see Joel Embiid until our inevitable playoff series coming up in April. The reigning MVP. Why are they dropping? I don't know. But that loss is your game. If you want to go see the Orlando Magic play the Philadelphia 76ers tonight, if you want a last-minute ticket to the game, Gametime is your place to go and get it. You shouldn't have to worry about getting those tickets. Gametime has you covered. With Gametime, they're obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even after an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. You can find exclusive flash deals, sponsored deals for tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and a whole lot more. With zone deals, you pick the section, and Gametime actually picks the seats for big-time savings. And the Gametime guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Gametime is going to credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, LOCKEDON. The L and the O for on are capitalized. Don't know if that matters, but that's what it says. For $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, I want to close today's show because obviously there's a lot of talk about the trade deadline. And this week was a big one for trade deadline talk. And I have a big article coming out on the trade deadline tomorrow. I'm not going to completely preview that here, but the Magic are obviously involved. And the Magic obviously have to be a player. This week, I reserved kind of comments on what's going on around the league because I was on the road and very focused on game coverage. I'm saying with people I didn't want to record outside of the arena space. But obviously we had another big move. The Indiana Pacers acquiring Pascal Siakam. A huge move, not just a move that affects this year. It's not just that maybe solidifies the Pacers as a full playoff team. Look, 4 through 8 is still going to be a fight. The Magic are 2.5 back of the Knicks and the Cavs for that spot. We are not out of getting a home court advantage in the first round. Like, we're not out of it. The way the schedule sets up for the Magic, they're going to be in the running. We will have the chance to make that ground up. So the standings look bleak. The team is struggling right now. There's still a lot of time left. There's still a lot of season left. So the Magic are in striking distance. Don't worry about the standings quite yet. But undoubtedly, the Pacers just got better. I mean, yeah, they gave up a lot. Bruce Brown is a big time veteran to get, but Siakam also has championship experience. And so we have to ask ourselves, what are the Magic doing to keep up? What are the Magic doing to get better? And I try to take a more holistic approach to the trade deadline. I try to think, okay, like what are our goals? What are we trying to accomplish? What do we need immediately? And what can we wait till the summer? That is the big question. And every time I do these exercises, every time I ask these questions, I always try to keep two things in mind. First, at least from what I can sense and what I feel about this team, it's not about this season. The Magic are not going to do anything just for this season, just like the Pacers did, just like the Knicks didn't. But now that we're starting to see other teams make these very aggressive moves, we have to start thinking about, not necessarily about keeping up with the Joneses, because I don't think that's the right way to approach things, but we do have to start thinking about which teams are we knocking out to climb where we want to go. And if the Knicks got better with OG Anunoby, and if the Pacers got better with Pascal Siakam, how do the Magic not only keep pace, but get better? Now, I think a big part of what this second half of the season is kind of figuring out what this team's actual needs are. Like, look, we know they need shooting. That's number one. We suspect they need a point guard. Like a real full-time point guard. Not that Markelle Fultz has not been good, and I think he's played fantastic over the last week, but he may not be the right point guard for this team. And I think that's that's a question the Magic have to answer more immediately because of his free agency this summer. We have to figure out what this team actually needs. And frankly, I think a lot of that comes in the playoffs. Getting into a playoff series, getting beat, understanding how bad that shooting need might be, or figuring out, to me, like the big thing is figuring out what do we have that's going to get better internally, and what do we have that can only be improved externally. And again, some of those conclusions may already be made. It may be, okay, we know we need shooting. We don't have a shooting on the roster. We need more shooting. Some of it may be, we have already decided on Markelle Fultz. If the Magic have already decided on Markelle Fultz, the only reason that they would keep him, the only reason they wouldn't make a move to get a point guard at this deadline is concerns about chemistry. And my understanding is that there are some concerns about that a major disruption like that, because this team is so close, would disrupt chemistry and would throw this team off a little bit. And I think that's a real concern. I think that is a real consideration. These are human beings. Markelle is extremely well respected and a big friend of a lot of players on this team. The guys love each other, and the business of the league is starting to creep in on this team. And it's going to be a reality they have to face. I'm not sitting here saying just roll this whole thing back next year. They cannot do that. But now we got to start thinking about, what does this team actually need? And not just for this year, for the next 2-3 seasons at least. And how do we go about getting that? What are we willing to give up? And that's honestly the more difficult side of the equation. The rumors going around, Mark Stein on his Substack has posted a lot of these. But Jake Fisher's, I think, corroborated at least the Wendell Carter part, is that the Magic are indeed shopping Wendell Carter and Markelle Fultz. Or at least the way Mark Stein phrases it is executives believe both are going to be available. The Magic, again, notoriously tight-lipped. They don't say anything. But to me, the logic is there. Because what are the Magic looking to trade? Well, Paolo and Franz are off the table. Jalen's probably off the table. But you're willing to trade right now are Gary Harris, Chuma Okeke, expiring contracts. Markelle Fultz, Wendell Carter, they've been hurt most of the year. And Markelle Fultz has a long list of injuries. So what value are you actually getting? And that is the bigger problem that the Magic have. I mean, look, Orlando's going to get involved. They have been linked to Malcolm Brogdon. They have been linked to Tyus Jones. Our friend Matt Moore over at Locked On NBA suggested the Magic do get into the Zach LaVine business and do try to acquire Zach LaVine to get another secondary playmaker and a big time scorer and a big time shooting threat. Zach LaVine's 3-point percentage may not be great, but he is a shooting threat. Defenses respect his shot, and that's important. I would argue the Magic should at least be probing and kicking the tires on DeJounte Murray to get a high profile kind of lead guard who can take over games when you need him to, can be an assist guy, but can also play a little bit off the ball. There's definitely some people who don't think that, but theoretically he can do that, and theoretically he can be a good defender, and he's got the size the Magic like. The Magic do have the assets to do some of this. They have some big contracts they can move. Jonathan Isaac's another big contract that can move that's got a lot of injury questions. They have all their draft picks that they can move. And the Magic have to get serious about this now. They have to start thinking, okay, what do we need? How do we get, who do we target? Because it's who, not, you don't just take what the market gives you. You target who you want and the player type that you want. And they have to make sure, they have to start getting better. Again, they've done a lot to foster internal growth. And the Magic are where they are in the standings because of internal growth. They have 22 wins. They're over 500 at the 41 game mark for the first time since Dwight Howard left. This season, even if the Magic just get to 44 wins, even if they match their 22-19 first half of the season, 44 wins beats the Vegas over-under. That gets them into the play-in tournament. That gets them in the postseason. That's a successful season. Is it a smashing success? Is it everything we thought it was? No. And that's the part this team's going to have to figure out. Frankly, right now, because we haven't seen a fully healthy roster, and we've got, maybe a dozen games until the deadline, because we haven't seen a fully healthy roster, my suspicion or my belief at this juncture is that we got to see what this team looks like before we really know what it needs. Again, we know shooting. We probably know point guard, maybe center, shooting again. We know these things. We just got to find, the Magic just have to be smart about finding it and maybe developing it still. We'll see. That's good. That's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at @PhilipR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of them on podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. And of course, check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub. You can find that at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. It's thanks to that support that I was able to go on the road, follow the Magic, be part of your voice covering the team I know that the Magic don't always have the largest traveling contingent. So I truly appreciate that opportunity, and I truly appreciate all your support. I'm hoping to travel again for the playoffs. I'll certainly be traveling down to Miami on February 4th, or February 6th, excuse me, for that last game in Miami. I will be taking Brightline, since everyone asked me the last time if I took Brightline. That's my plan, at least. But I truly appreciate all your support and appreciate, whether you're reading, listening, wherever. I truly appreciate all your support. If you do have the ability to donate a little bit, patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub, you do get some extra content. You do get access to a Discord channel with me and all that jazz. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel for all the latest around the sports world from local experts like me, as well as Locked On's national shows. Definitely check that out today. On tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic, we will have a Friday night, Saturday morning episode of Locked On Magic. We'll recap the Magic's homecoming game against the Philadelphia 76ers. Until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.